The Galactic Council had no reason to fear humans. Not truly. They were a fledgling species, primitive by cosmic standards. They had barely scratched the surface of interstellar travel, stumbling upon faster-than-light capabilities only in the last century. And yet, there had been whispers, disturbing reports of human ingenuity, of technological leaps that should have taken millennia occurring in mere decades. The Council had dismissed them as anomalies. Until now, Dr. Evelyn Carter sat restrained in a sterile containment cell aboard the orbital prison station Vorith 9, a floating fortress nestled in the gravitational pull of a dying red star. The walls gleamed with the faint, iridescent sheen of biometal, pulsing like a living organism. The only sound was the occasional hum of security drones passing outside her cell. She was alone, unarmed, and yet they were afraid. The moment they had captured her on Earth, she had sensed their unease. Not the kind reserved for a dangerous fugitive or a war criminal. No, this was something different, something more primal. She had seen it in the way they watched her, in the hesitant exchanges between the guards, in the way their high-ranking officers spoke in hushed tones when they thought she couldn't hear. Evelyn had learned long ago that fear, when properly understood, was a weapon sharper than any blade. The door to her cell hissed open, and 3 figures stepped inside. The first was a Zorthian, a towering reptilian biped with emerald scales and a ridge of bone spikes down his back. His kind was known for brute strength and their unwavering loyalty to the Council. His black ceremonial armor gleamed under the artificial lighting, his clawed fingers flexing with barely concealed anticipation. The second was an Icarian, a crystalline entity whose translucent body refracted the light into shifting spectrums. Evelyn had read about them. Intellect-driven creatures with minds sharper than any quantum processor. The Icarians were rumored to have memories stretching back over millennia, their kind forming the backbone of the Council's scientific and strategic divisions. The third was a Vexery, a sleek, cybernetic hybrid of flesh and machine. It was difficult to tell where the organic parts ended and the artificial enhancements began. Evelyn had encountered similar beings before. Cold, logical, merciless. Vexery operated with ruthless efficiency, seeing the universe in terms of probabilities and risk factors. Evelyn remained seated, her hands still bound, her face an unreadable mask. The Zorthian spoke first, his voice a guttural growl. "You are Dr. Evelyn Carter, astrophysicist, researcher, and, by your own government's admission, a civilian." His slitted eyes narrowed. "We know that is a lie." Evelyn tilted her head, her expression perfectly neutral. "I suppose you have proof of that accusation?" The Icarian's voice was different, reverberating through the room as though it came from multiple places at once. "Your species is young, too young, and yet you grasp at knowledge beyond your station. There are equations in your research that should not be possible for a mind of your kind." Evelyn exhaled slowly. So that was it. She had suspected for some time that she had drawn unwanted attention. Her work had been groundbreaking. Asterisk, asterisk, 2, groundbreaking, asterisk, asterisk, as some of her colleagues had warned. The mathematical models she had developed in astrophysics had suggested avenues of faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation that even the most advanced civilizations had yet to fully explore. She had chalked it up to her natural talent, to the relentless curiosity that defined humanity. But now, sitting in this cold, alien cell, she wondered if she had underestimated her own importance. The Vexery stepped forward, its glowing blue eyes scanning her, cybernetic implants whirring softly. "You are an anomaly, Dr. Carter. We do not trust anomalies." Evelyn met its gaze. "Because anomalies cannot be controlled." Silence. The Zorthian's tail flicked in irritation. "Tell us, human, how did you come by this knowledge? Were you trained? Enhanced? Or is your entire species simply an accident of nature, spiraling towards something it was never meant to become?" Evelyn allowed herself a small smile. "You're afraid of us." The Zorthian lunged forward, but the Icarian raised a crystalline limb, stopping him. "Do not let her goad you." Evelyn watched the exchange, filing it away. They were uneasy, unsure. Good. She leaned forward slightly. Let me guess. The Council has been watching us for centuries, maybe longer, studying our progress, interfering when necessary. Her voice was calm, measured. And then you started noticing something strange. Patterns that shouldn't exist. Leaps in understanding that defied probability. And now, you're asking yourself a question you don't like the answer to. The Icarian shifted, its crystalline form flickering with iridescent waves of light. And what question is that? Her smile didn't waver. What if humanity wasn't supposed to be this advanced? What if we've been accelerated? The room fell silent. Evelyn wasn't entirely sure where the idea had come from. Perhaps it had been forming in the back of her mind for years, a puzzle she hadn't even known she was trying to solve. But now, seeing the way they reacted, she knew she had struck something deep. The Vexery's voice, normally devoid of emotion, held the faintest trace of tension. We are not the only ones who have considered this possibility. That caught her attention. They weren't the only ones. Before she could press further, the Icarian stepped back. Enough. We will continue this discussion under different circumstances. The Zorthian snarled but obeyed, turning sharply on his heel. The Vexery lingered a moment longer, those artificial eyes scanning her once more before following the others. The door hissed shut. Evelyn sat in silence, her mind racing. They had made a mistake. A critical one. They had captured her expecting a frightened human, a weak and pliable being who would crumble under the weight of their interrogation. Instead, they had given her something far more valuable than her freedom. They had given her knowledge. And knowledge was the sharpest weapon of all. Evelyn had never been one to believe in fate. But as she sat in the sterile containment cell of Vorith 9, she began to suspect the universe had placed her here for a reason. The Galactic Council thought they had secured their prize, that their prison's walls would hold her, that their technology was beyond her reach. They had underestimated her. Their first mistake had been assuming she was afraid. Their second mistake had been leaving her alone with nothing but time and observation. Time was a scientist's greatest ally, and observation was her sharpest tool. Within hours, she had mapped the guard rotation based on the subtle shifts in the vibration of the floor panels. Within a day, she had deciphered the fluctuating energy fields reinforcing her cell, noting the precise intervals where the system reset, a 37-second vulnerability every cycle. And within 2 days, she had begun to tear apart the Council from the inside. She started with doubt. The Zorthian, Commander Karish, was prideful but easily agitated. He relied on strength, on dominance, and Evelyn knew how to twist that against him. During their next interrogation, she let her gaze linger on the subtle scarring along his shoulder ridges, an old wound, perhaps from a battle lost. She didn't need to say anything. His kind thrived on combat, but they despised weakness. The longer she stared, the more tense he became. You find something amusing, human? Karish growled. Evelyn arched a brow. Not amusing, just interesting. That was all it took. Karish's tail lashed against the floor, his reptilian eyes narrowing. The Icarian beside him, cold and logical, observed the exchange in silence. She let their own insecurities do the rest. Then there was paranoia. The Vexery officer, Celix, was methodical, a being of algorithms and efficiency. But for all the computational prowess of its cybernetic mind, there was one flaw Evelyn knew would be present. Asterisk, asterisk, risk, aversion, asterisk, asterisk. During an interrogation, she leaned forward just enough to let the cameras pick up her whisper. Your security protocols are outdated. Celix stiffened. The Icarian beside it flickered with iridescent light. She smiled just slightly. You're running adaptive firewalls, but they rely on pattern recognition. And if I know that, what else do you think I've figured out? Celix didn't answer, but the next day, Evelyn noticed an increase in automated security sweeps. Good. She had planted the seed. Let them believe she was one step ahead. That fear would spread faster than any prison alarm. But the most dangerous weapon of all? Truth. During one of her escorted transfers between interrogation rooms, she overheard something. Just a whisper, a stray comment between two Icarian analysts. If the data is correct, then humanity's technological acceleration is unnatural. Unnatural. Evelyn had suspected it. Now she had confirmation. They weren't just afraid of human ingenuity. They were afraid of why humans were progressing so fast. That changed everything. The next time she was brought before the Icarian overseer, she made sure they saw the realization in her eyes. "You don't fear what I know," she said. "You fear what I might be." The room was silent. She leaned back, feigning a casual confidence she wasn't entirely sure she felt. "Tell me, how long has the council been monitoring us?" The Icarian didn't answer, but that was the answer. She exhaled, a slow breath as puzzle pieces clicked together in her mind. "You didn't capture me because of my research. You captured me because my research confirmed something you were already afraid of." Still silence. Then the Vexery spoke. "We are done here." She was escorted back to her cell, but she knew the real battle had already begun. That night, she set her plan in motion. Using the 37-second window in the security cycle, she placed the small metallic fragment she had hidden, a shard pried from the base of her interrogation chair, into the panel junction outside her cell. It was a simple trick, forcing a feedback loop in the energy circuit. The lights flickered. The force field shimmered. Then, for the first time in 3 days, the door to her cell slid open. Evelyn moved. She didn't hesitate. Hesitation was death. She slipped into the corridor, the silence of the station pressing in around her. Her escape wasn't about brute force. She couldn't fight her way through an entire Galactic Council security force. But she didn't have to. She just had to outthink them. She moved swiftly, staying in the blind spots of the security drones, using the knowledge she had gathered to navigate the station undetected. Every observation she had made, the patrol routes, the system vulnerabilities, the habits of her captors, had led to this moment. She made her way to a secondary control hub, a smaller, less guarded terminal that still had access to station-wide systems. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She accessed the console, fingers flying over the alien interface. The Council thought their security was impenetrable. They hadn't designed it for humans, for minds that thrived on breaking patterns, on seeing solutions where none should exist. She wasn't just escaping. She was sending a message. With a final keystroke, she transmitted a single encrypted burst toward the nearest human listening post. A fragment of stolen Council data. A whisper across the void. Then, alarms erupted. Evelyn exhaled, a slow, measured breath. They would come for her now, but that was fine, because by the time they reached her, the truth would already be in human hands. And the Council's greatest mistake wouldn't be capturing her. It would be underestimating what she was about to become. Evelyn ran. The station's corridors pulsed with red emergency lights, alarms blaring through the metallic halls like a symphony of impending violence. The Galactic Council's forces were mobilizing. She could hear the heavy footfalls of Zorthian enforcers, the whir of Vexery combat drones, the hurried whispers of Icarian strategists recalculating their containment protocols. They had underestimated her. Now, they were scrambling to correct their mistake. Too late. She had bought herself mere minutes, but in the game of survival, minutes were an eternity. She navigated the sterile labyrinth with precision, ducking behind bulkheads, slipping through maintenance hatches. Every detail she had absorbed since her capture was now a tool, every observation a weapon. They had imprisoned her, believing her to be dangerous. And now, she was proving them right. A sudden burst of static crackled through the station's comm systems. Then, a voice, mechanical, artificial, and laced with urgency. Asterisk, asterisk, unauthorized transmission detected. Human distress signal intercepted. Asterisk, asterisk. Evelyn's breath hitched. They knew. She had risked everything on that transmission. A single encrypted burst of stolen Council data sent toward the nearest human outpost. She hadn't had time to confirm if it had reached its destination, but if the Council was reacting this strongly, then it must have. Somewhere in the void, someone was listening, and if they were listening, they were coming. A metallic hiss sounded behind her. A door sliding open. She spun just as a Vexery enforcer lunged, its sleek, cybernetic form moving with terrifying speed. Evelyn twisted away, barely avoiding the crackling arc of an energy baton. Her mind processed the angles, the timing, the openings in the Vexery's movement. It attacked again. She ducked low, letting its momentum carry it forward, then drove her elbow into the base of its exposed servos. The machine staggered, and in that fraction of a second, she grabbed its baton and turned it against its owner. A single, well-placed strike to the neck sent the enforcer crashing to the ground, its glowing blue optics flickering before going dark. Evelyn exhaled, gripping the stolen weapon. She had never been a soldier, never trained for war. But humans had always been something else. Asterisk, asterisk, adaptable, asterisk, asterisk. The council feared it. Now, they were experiencing it firsthand. A new sound reverberated through the station. A deep, resonant hum, growing louder. Evelyn's pulse quickened. That wasn't an alarm. That was a ship approaching. She raced toward the nearest viewport. Outside the station's energy field, the darkness of space stretched endlessly, a void unmarred by stars. Then, like a blade slicing through shadow, something emerged. Sleek, angular. A warship bristling with kinetic artillery and fusion cannons, its hull reflecting the dim light of the dying red star. A Terran Defense Fleet battlecruiser. They had received her message. For the first time since her capture, Evelyn felt something dangerously close to relief. But she wasn't free yet. The Council would never allow this ship to retrieve her. She could already see the station's defense turrets shifting, the pulse cannons charging. The battle was about to begin, and she was still trapped inside the heart of enemy territory. The comms crackled again, this time with a different voice. Asterisk, asterisk, Dr. Carter. If you're hearing this, we're here to get you out. We need a signal. Asterisk, asterisk. The transmission cut off abruptly, drowned out by a deafening explosion as the station's first offensive salvo erupted toward the battlecruiser. Evelyn clenched her jaw. The Terran forces were buying her time, but she had to make it count. She turned, sprinting toward the primary control hub. The station's security grid was formidable, but Evelyn had spent days studying its weaknesses. She reached the access terminal, slamming the stolen baton against the control panel to short-circuit the firewall override. Sparks showered the console as the interface flickered, its security protocol scrambling. She only needed one thing from it, a manual override of the station's docking clamps. If she could disengage them, a rescue shuttle could dock. If she failed, no, failure wasn't an option. Her fingers flew over the alien interface, deciphering its structure in real time. The Council built their technology under the assumption that only their kind would ever need to use it. They had never accounted for a human mind dissecting it from the inside. She bypassed the first layer of encryption, then the second. The third fought back. The system locked up, flashing a warning in a carrion script. Evelyn exhaled sharply. She didn't have time for finesse. She rewrote the code entirely. A final keystroke, and the docking clamps released. A series of green lights flickered across the control panel. Access granted. She didn't have time to celebrate. The doors behind her blasted open, and Commander Karish stormed inside, weapon drawn. His slitted eyes burned with fury. You have no idea what you've done. Evelyn turned slowly, raising her hands just slightly. I think I do. He advanced, nostrils flaring. The Council does not fear humans. It fears what comes next. Evelyn met his gaze. Then you were right to be afraid. A thunderous impact rocked the station. The battlecruiser had fired its main cannons. The force sent Karish staggering just enough for Evelyn to move. She ducked, grabbed the fallen Vexery baton, and struck first. The Zorthian roared, swinging wildly, but Evelyn was already past him. She bolted through the open doors, running for the docking bay as the walls trembled around her. By the time she reached the airlock, the Terran shuttle was already docking, its landing thrusters firing in precise bursts. The hatch opened, and a squad of armored Marines emerged, weapons raised. The lead soldier locked eyes with her. Dr. Carter? Evelyn didn't hesitate. Let's go. She barely made it onto the shuttle before the station's self-destruct protocols activated. The Council would rather destroy the evidence than let her escape. As the shuttle veered away, she watched through the viewport as Vorith 9 erupted in a violent cascade of fire and debris, consumed by the gravitational pull of the dying red star. Evelyn closed her eyes, letting out a slow breath. She wasn't just a prisoner who had escaped. She was something more. The Council had tried to contain her, to silence her. Instead, they had given her exactly what she needed, ***, a reason to fight back. ***.